Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to document what is happening in Texas, especially, so that we can learn from it. That way a year from now, when we're going into something similar to what's happening now, because I feel that the lower 48 in particular, when it comes to the United States, is going to continue to have weather events such as this in the months and years to come. So I want to document this so that we can learn from it, and so that hopefully some people will be better prepared in the future. Disaster within disaster. There have now been at least 30 people that have lost their lives as the energy crisis in Texas hits the 6th day. Reuters reports that the House Speaker expects the House Committee on Energy and Commerce to examine Texas energy issues that resulted in one of the worst controlled blackouts in the country's history. One of the nation's wealthiest states can barely supply electricity to its residents. The power crisis has spread well among its borders, crippling northern Mexico. So this is not only affecting Texans, it's also affecting Mexico. And it's also affecting, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you something here in a little bit, the production of oil. You know that Texas produces a lot of the nation's oil. According to the New York Post, at least 2.7 million Texans households were without heat, electricity, or water this morning as a polar vortex air mass continues to linger in the Lone Star State. The death toll from the historic cold snap and multiple winter storms has increased to at least 30. Besides power plants, the deep freeze has crippled critical infrastructure. Besides power plants, the deep freeze has crippled critical infrastructure systems across the state, such as water treatment plants and cellular networks. In a note on Wednesday, we asked if Texas was facing a humanitarian crisis, and to come find, yes it is. The cascading effects of days without power have effectively transformed some parts of Texas into a third world country. The local economy is in tatters, as 1/5 of the nation's refining capacity has come to a screeching halt. Readers in other states should prepare for a surge in crude product prices, such as gasoline and diesel. Also, the state's oil and natural gas production has ground to a halt. See, ladies and gentlemen, something that's happening, and someone asked me a while back, about, when we were talking about food shortages and food prices and things like that. And we were talking about China. And they're like, well, this is going on in China. What does it matter to us over here? And I explained to this person that only because it's going on in China doesn't mean it only affects them. Same thing here. Only because this is only happening in Texas doesn't mean that it's not going to affect the rest of the country and even some other parts of the world. The governor of Texas announced Wednesday that he has forbidden gas producers from selling to power producers outside its borders through February 21. The disruption has also spilled over into Mexico, where the U.S. has curbed natural gas exports, resulting in power stations grinding to a halt. And this is from oilprice.com. The plummeting natural gas exports from the United States to Mexico amid an Arctic cold spell in the country that has led to a gas demand surge is causing blackouts in northern Mexico, with some 4.77 million households and businesses left without power on Monday. Argus noted that most of the natural gas Mexico receives from the United States comes from the Permian, where the production of both oil and gas have been affected by the cold weather that has caused power outages across Texas. Oil wells are being shut down, and so are refineries along the Gulf Coast, Reuters reported earlier today, adding oil and gas pipeline operations were also disrupted by the weather. The blackouts, Bloomberg reports, will strengthen the government's argument that Mexico needs to be less dependent on energy imports. There is also talk of the agricultural disaster in Texas, as its citrus crop could amount to significant losses. The impact of the cold weather and storms won't be realized for another few weeks. Growers are already warning that crop losses could be substantial, since Texas is the nation's third largest citrus producing state behind California and Florida. A loss in crop could result in skyrocketing prices, which comes at a time when many Americans are dealing with soaring food inflation. At the same time, others can barely afford to pay rent and feed their families. Ladies and gentlemen, how long have we been talking about this? We had weather events last year that dramatically reduced our crop yields. We also had some other things that happened to our crops. I remember that a whole bunch of sugar beets had to be plowed over because they ended up freezing in the ground. And wouldn't you know it, that the price of sugar is expected to go up this year. Why? Because we don't have as much of a supply. They say it's because there's more demand, but I'm not going for that. It's because we don't have much of a supply. We lost 35% of our sugar beet crop last year. That has to affect the supply, and it is now catching up to us. This is going to affect us as well. So what do you do, ladies and gentlemen? You prepare. Plain and simple. You just prepare. The worst is likely over, as warmer temperatures could be seen by the weekend. But for weeks after, Texas will be dealing with a multitude of problems related to power grid collapse that is still ongoing. The biggest takeaway from the largest controlled blackout in American history is that trust in private corporations and government to manage your well-being is set to collapse even further. Parts of Texas are effectively a third world country this week. Maybe being a prepper and storing a few cans of beans, a couple of coins of silver, a few bitcoins, some ammunition, a generator, and clean water might not be a bad idea. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would probably reprioritize the list as it was given. However, he's saying the same thing that I just said. Just prepare, ladies and gentlemen. Get those things that you need. Use this as a learning experience. That way you know what to do for yourselves in the future. And you don't end up like one of those 30 people that lost their lives. And I'm not harping on them, ladies and gentlemen. We're all in different parts of our lives, and there's only so much that some people can do. But you don't want to end up like that, especially if you have the time now to prepare. In this article right here, you can see it says, Texas frozen chaos becomes global oil market nightmare with 40% of crude production offline. So we can definitely expect higher gasoline and diesel prices. I'm actually very glad that I just had my heating fuel filled up less than a week ago. So I should be able to get through this storm, and hopefully the prices will come back down before I need to fill up again. However, ladies and gentlemen, this will affect everything. It's not going to only affect the price of gasoline, but it's also going to affect the price of transportation, the price that it costs to transfer food from one place to another. This is a cascading event that will eventually affect our entire country. And like they said in our previous article here, some parts of the world as well. And for those of you that are in the East Coast, you guys have an imminent winter storm spreading across the Northeast. And it looks like it's going to be concentrating around Virginia, around New York, New Jersey, those parts, the upper Northeast. So if you live in those areas, take the warning and make sure that you're prepared. If you have a generator, in order to get your house going, make sure you have a generator if you have one. You can pick one up fairly cheap if you can find them. All right. Make sure that you have food. Make sure that you have water, plenty of water. Make sure that you have batteries, flashlights. If you have a portable heater that doesn't require electricity, even better. Extra blankets, all of those things, ladies and gentlemen. All of those things you will be needing this coming weekend when you get hit with that storm. All right, having said that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. Hope you got something out of this. Let's all pray for Texas and everyone that's been affected by this, and especially for the families of those that have been lost in the last 3 or 4 days. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of your families. This is the Last Prepper. I'm out.